All right, Silver Doctors, live on air. Excited to be back for another live stream on the 17th day of the month of January 2020. My name is Mike, co-host. Got my better half over here, Mr. Half Dollar. How are we doing this afternoon?
Doing good today, Mike. Happy Friday to you. Hopefully we got all our audio and our video working good today so we can have a nice smooth stream. We'll see here.
That would be nice. So as always, before we dive any further, let's check in with the chat and also let me know how the audio sounds so there's no more issues. And so one of the things where some things you can't control, some things you can't. Let me know from before we get too deep into it. And we'll go from there. So we got Jason, you got 11 above, we got Peter Pun, we got low blood pressure, Jason James. All right, so a couple people there. So I assume everything is going well. My bars are moving once again, so we'll see. So Mr. Half Dollar, how do you want to kick off this Friday live chat?
Well, the way I want to kick it off is just giving a big shout out to everybody who participates with us, right? I appreciate that because, you know, we get a lot of people calling in. We get a lot of people chatting back and forth. We get a lot of people emailing us. And something that we got emailed got me thinking about something, got me to go down this rabbit hole and dive deep. And I have uncovered some pretty interesting stuff here, Mike, to talk about today. So I appreciate everybody, you know, participating how they participate because, you know, we're just a couple of guys, right? We don't know everything and everybody else can help us figure this stuff out. And I figured out some really awesome stuff to get into here today, Mike.
Good deal. Let's go there then. Let's go there. Where you want to take it?
Okay. I have figured out President Trump's 2020 campaign reelection strategy, and it has to do with the economy. And it's very important and it's very interesting. And this is where I want to start.
All right.
So it's a three-pronged approach to the campaign strategy. His campaign strategy is a three-pronged approach. And I'm just going to go through very specific examples, and we're going to talk about this prong by prong. Okay, so it's a three-pronged attack. You ready to get into it?
Let's go ahead, man. Let's take it there.
Okay. Prong one. And I'm going to call this lie some more and rely on the disconnect. So that's the first prong. Now, what am I talking about? I need to set the stage here, right? So we're going to be talking about all of this three-pronged attack in light of healthcare. Now, I need to set the stage because all these years that President Trump's been in office, he's been talking about how he's been doing all this great stuff for prescription drugs and healthcare. So let me just read, and I don't even have to link these to you. People can find this, obviously. So I'm just going to read these so we can set the stage here.
All right.
So in 2017, in October, President Trump said, very proud of my executive order, which will allow greatly expanded access and far lower costs for healthcare. Millions of people to benefit. That's 2017. Let's get into early 2018. And he's going back and forth with some people, but he's saying, I was never planning on a vote prior to the 2020 election on the wonderful healthcare package that some talented people are now developing for me and the Republican Party. It will be on full display during the election. So, you know, he's doing all this great stuff for healthcare. Then so that was back in April of last year. Then November of last year, right? So just a couple months ago, he's talking about prescription drug prices. And he's saying, you know, it's time for the Democrats to get serious about bipartisan solutions to lowering prescription drug prices for families. While we had the first prescription drug price decrease in 50 years, Americans still pay far too much for drugs. So I've just set the stage here. And let me set the stage with one other thing. You know that Trump Twitter archive that I like? Just for fun, I searched the phrase no inflation together, two words together. And from December of 2018 to present, that phrase, just the phrase no inflation, one search phrase came up 19 times that he tweeted no inflation. Now, so this is the lie, and lie some more. Now, let's talk about the bombshell report that came out this week. Because, you know, what has everybody been so hyper-focused on? They've been focused on Iran. They've been focused on the trade one phase deal. They've been focused on impeachment. They've been focused on the Democrat debate. They've been focused on all sorts of stuff, but like actually getting into the numbers behind the economy. So what came out on Tuesday was the CPI, the Consumer Price Inflation from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, our government's official statistical measures for inflation. Now, I don't take those numbers with, I take those numbers with a grain of salt because I believe that the government truly does, and, we can prove this in various ways, understates inflation, right? They understate inflation. So inflation is actually higher than the government says that it is. That's what I believe. But Tuesday, the report came out. Let's just take the report at face value and talk about a couple things here so I can conclude the first prong in this three-pronged attack. Okay. So the report came out. The CPI came out on Tuesday. And if you go down to page, and I could link this to you if you want, but it's really long. Let me just send this to you if you want to put it up or not. I'm not sure. Go ahead. Okay. Now, this CPI report, right? It breaks down everything, right? It has like what the price of bacon is, right? I mean, so this breaks down pretty much everything, Yeah. So if you scroll down to page 37 of that PDF, right? These are in the footnotes and in the charts. And, you don't have to do this. I'm just providing it for a follow along, but you can do it while I'm talking if you'd like.
All right, go ahead.
But if you scroll down to page 37, there's a category called medical care services. Over the course of the entire 2019, guess what kind of change we had to medical care services category? We had an increase of 5.1%.
Yeah.
Inflation. Now, it's worse. You ready for this one, Mike?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's another category called health insurance. Throughout all of 2019, guess how much our government says that health insurance went up?
1%. Or
20.4%. 20.4%. Now, someone's going to say, well, President Trump's not really lying because he said prescription drugs, and you're talking about medical care services or health insurances. Okay, well, on page 36, there's a category called prescription drugs, right? Guess how much prescription drugs went up throughout the entirety of 2019? 3%. Our own government is telling us that prescription drugs went up 3% throughout all of 2019, even though President Trump said it's the first time they went down in 3 years. Yeah. Somebody is lying here, right? And I've proven time and time again how it's President Trump that's the liar here. Now, although the BLS is in fact lying about their statistics because they're understating inflation. Now, why is this an issue and how is this incorporating into the strategy? Because of this reason. Think about this, right? So this is the play for the fan base. This is what he's doing to the fan base because the fan base hears all this stuff that President Trump is doing. They think, wow, this is great. This is where that booming economy narrative comes from. He's doing all this great stuff for healthcare. He's lowering prescription drug prices when he's not. He's taking care of healthcare when it's going up 20%. But why do they not know that? Because there's a disconnect. And let me talk about the disconnect here for a second.
Go ahead.
Couple numbers I'm going to throw at you real quick. The entire population of the United States is 327 million. Now, under 18 people are 74 million, right? And that was in 2010 census. In 2017, it was estimated that there were 30.6 million people from the ages of 18 to 24 in the United States who aren't really even buying health insurance, although they are voting age. There's 44 million people on Medicaid. There's 44 million people on Medicare. There's 74 million people on Medicaid. There's 118 million either on one or both. Take about 20% off because some people are eligible for Medicaid even if they're on Medicare. There's 2.5 million people incarcerated in this country. There's 4.2 million federal employees, including the U.S. military and the Postal Service and all this and all that. And there's 9 million veterans enrolled in veteran health care. Here's my point with that. Hundreds of millions of people in this country, i.e., President Trump's support base. Hundreds of millions of people in this country don't really see that health insurance is going up. Why? Because in part or in whole, their health insurance is taken care of by the U.S. federal government. So President Trump can say something like this, and yeah, that's fine because I don't have any copay and I don't pay for prescription medication anyway because the government just provides it all for me. So they have no idea that it's going up. That's prong one. And that gets to the fan base. Do I need to stop there, or do you want me to just go ahead and go?
No, go ahead and lay it all out there, my friend. Go ahead.
Here's prong two. And I don't know where this is headed, so this is just something I've been thinking about all night and lost sleep over. Here's prong two. Boost the 1%. Because here's the thing. If hundreds of millions of people are on the dole and they have their health insurance costs or prescription drug costs subsidized in whole or in part by the government, well, what about the people that realize health insurance costs are skyrocketing? Well, you boost the 1%. How do you do that? You boost the stock market. What were the gains of the S&P 500 throughout all of 2019? The gains were over 29%. Therefore, for the top 1%, even though their health insurance premiums shot up 20% in 2019, according to our official government statistics that were just released on the 14th of January, even though health insurance costs went up 20%, the S&P 500 went up 29%. Their standard of living is rising even in the face of rising healthcare costs. They don't care. The 1% absolutely loves President Trump. So it's irregardless. That's prong 2. What's prong 3? Silence the ones who talk about this stuff. Silence the dissent. Now, why is that important? It's very important because you would have to assume that if I'm dumb enough to figure this out, other people can figure this out, right? Other people know what I'm talking about. They can look at the numbers. We all have access to the same information. Yeah. Here's my point. We don't have to go over this too much because we've proven it time and time again how our tiny channel is directly attacked by the internet censors and big tech. But think about it this way, right? Because, I think of somebody such as Charles Hugh Smith. And if Charles Hugh Smith is anything, he is one of the premier authorities when it comes to exposing the corruption and fraud in the education system and the corruption and fraud in the healthcare system. And if you read his writing and if you talk to him, and we talked to him last fall, there is hardcore pressure even to silence him. And he's like, right up there with like Gandhi and Martin Luther King as far as pacifism goes. He's not going to take to the streets with pitchforks and torches. He'd probably have the picket signs, right? I mean, I haven't asked that question directly. But my point is, prong 3 is anybody who talks about it in these terms, you silence them. And, I can give our example, but so I don't look biased, look at the example of what they've done to Charles Hugh Smith, just for talking about it, right? So that's what I've figured out over the last night. Does any of that make sense, or what do you think about that?
Okay, so you laid out a lot of statistical data there. So the data you share with us is more than enough to convince any skeptics or doubters or haters that the mainstream narrative, of course, is false, and therefore the goal is to silence the people who are willing to tell the truth and hope that the dumbed down masses don't come to the light of the fact that prices have gone up significantly. And to even hit on it further, the working class, those that actually are either provided health care through their company or actually go out into the market and buy it themselves, those people know that the costs are going up because the ones directly shopping for it have noticed an increase ever since the Obamacare was rolled out during the last administration. So I'm well aware of how there's a lot of disgruntled medical people or people in the medical profession that have touted at how the cost has gone up and their portion of their compensation has not. Therefore, a lot of people have gotten out of the medical field because of government's intervention when it comes to insurance. So, I would imagine that that's a clear laid out case you just given us. But for some reason, there's going to be people out there that might say, he's bashing, he's hating. But like statistically saying a 20% increase in health costs lets you know that there is inflation, but the mainstream narrative will never touch that. So you have to come from an alternative person such as yourself. So
yes, and you have to scroll all the way down through all of those charts and look for that one little teeny tiny line with that over the 12 months ending December 2019. I mean, because it's there. It's right there plain as day. And I don't even believe those numbers, right? Yeah. So, and then also on top of that, so that's just at a federal level. Then think of all the people who work at the state or the local level, like the county or the city level. They got good health insurance plans. You see what I'm saying? So, their copay might go up $5 a year. Their copay on prescription drugs might go up a little tiny bit. But other than that, they're really not feeling the brunt of it. It's the people like Charles Hugh Smith. It's the business owners that are in small business. It's the people that are self-employed entrepreneurs. It's these kind of people who, they're too rich to qualify for the subsidized or totally free government health insurance, but they're too poor to be able to afford it, right? Yeah. So, and then their voices are silenced.
Yeah, man. So let's check in the chat and see how the viewers are taking that. And so I would imagine I'm going to throw out a question real quick just to get a chance to see where the audience or where the viewers stand. So as far as your healthcare cost, have you noticed a significant increase over the last 2-3 years, definitely you've noticed a cost increase over the last 5 or 6 years since the last administration rolled out the Obamacare into this current administration's. Even with all the things that they've attempted to roll back, there's still been an increase in cost. So by thumbs up or thumbs down, have you noticed an increase within the last year or so, perhaps, in your insurance costs, healthcare insurance costs? And thumbs down if you have not or don't really pay attention to it. So curious to find out what people have to say about that one. So hopefully
Yes.
we get a couple good responses there. But let's keep moving right along though, and we'll check back in with the chat and go from there. Nobody's highlighted anything, so.
Okay, and and yes, that's right. I'm not a Trump hater. I'm not a Trump basher. I just want to talk about things how they are. So, on that note, let's give credit where credit's due, because President Trump might be doing two things this week that's actually really good for the markets and for the economy. And let me talk about these two specific things. I'm not sure if you've heard about these, and I don't have any links for you. It's just been in the news. You can Google this, obviously. But one of the things is Judy Shelton's back in the news. So it looks like he actually might be nominating her. Now, I think that she's going to go like the route of Alan Greenspan or any of the other central bankers, where she's going to turn her back on gold and sound money if she does get appointed. But either way, I mean, I guess if, barring that, yes, that's a good thing, right? Then the second good thing is, and I don't know exactly because I didn't really dive deep into this because it's also not totally 100% official yet. But apparently, because see, like stuff like the CPI and the jobs report, all of these things are like very coordinated, right? They go out at 8:30 on the dot, and like there's a certain procedure to get the information. Then it's sent through the computer. Then it's sent down the Bloomberg terminal, for example, and then the HFT algos trade off of that. But what he's doing is he might be eliminating that middle computer step and making people actually go out with the paper reports, right? So that kind of hits into the HFT dominance aspect of the market, because that's really dirty and really shady and really corrupt insider type of stuff, right? They're basically skimming and milking profits. I mean, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day, how HFT trading is just pretty bad for the markets in general. But there are two really good things that he might be doing, but the problem is that he doesn't actually do it. He just talks about doing these things. So, has she officially been nominated? I haven't checked today, right? But it's just talking about it again. Is he actually going to do it this time? Any thoughts there? So that we do give credit when credit's due.
Yeah, so it appears to be that there's interest in implementing or installing somebody that speaks a good narrative and refers to gold as being something we need to get back to. But it's one of the things where by him throwing out fillers, so basically to me, I got an article on the screen right now. By now, it looks like, CNBC picked this up. Trump to nominate Sheldon Waller to serve on Fed. Once again, he's throwing out some fillers to see how people respond to it. And so I would imagine when it goes before the powers that be to actually consider it and to actually maybe even have them in for the little session of getting a chance to know them and find out their policies, whatever that's officially called. It's good to say that majority of the politicians that are bought and paid for will not approve of this unless the banks themselves approve of it. And it's good to say, I don't know if the banking sector would be willing to have someone come on that is not a part of their agenda. So therefore, as you mentioned, if she is on there, then she won't be talking gold heavily. She will be talking about doing more of the same. And then, as I sent you an article before about, there's rumors of how they're going to look to digitize a dollar by implementing some type of blockchain coin type of spinoff. So will she be a part of that if she gets in, or what will she have to sign off on in order to get the okay to become a member of the board? So those are all things we have to consider, because definitely if she gets approved, she's going to probably have to compromise something.
Absolutely. And if she gets approved, it's because there is a clear understanding of what she is and is not going to say and is not going to do. And I can't remember what it was, right? Because it's been like a year ago now when they first started bringing up Judy Shelton's name. But there was something, I think that she was like pro-negative interest rates or something like that. So it's like you can't be pro-gold and pro-negative interest rates at the same time, right? Or maybe she was pro-quantitative easing. I can't remember which one it was, but it's like they're two completely opposing views. So even though we give Trump credit where credit's due, it's not even really a good thing, because she herself is, diametrically opposed with two things that can't mix. Yeah,
very true. And so just before we move forward, to look back into the chat in regards to the question I threw out there, I see a lot of thumbs up on people who have noticed an increase in their cost. And a couple people, 1 or 2 thumbs down, it looks like. But on all in all, there's clear inflation everywhere. And so here's one of the biggest things I believe is a problem is that the majority of the population that's not financially literate or monetarily savvy as far as understanding how the economy works and how the monetary system basically controls our entire financial world. They wouldn't even really pay attention to CPI or actually know what that is. Nevertheless, to realize that all the numbers that have been given, they have to be fudged because they don't equate to real life mainstream economy or mainstream numbers for what we actually pay. And so once again, you said you had to go to the 37th page just to find out those numbers. And then you say, I'm not even sure if I can trust that. So it's one of the things like even the numbers that are given us are so unbelievable that just the very measuring bar to come up with those numbers clearly is tainted and wrong and well outdated. But yet that's what they're going to give us from now until the public wakes up, if they ever do.
Yeah, I don't think they will. In 1984, they talked about the fact that you could reduce the chocolate ration and then tell the population that you increased the chocolate ration, and then they would believe it, right? So I don't hold hope in the numbers, until we have like some sort of Putin style, drain the whole swamp, have everybody resign. But that's probably not what's coming. It's probably going to be some sort of armed insurrection, which is unfortunate. But anyway,
yeah. Now, let me ask you a question. This is probably way off the subject, and we haven't touched on this. But apart from hearing about it, I haven't talked about it much myself. But what's currently going on in Virginia with the gun rights and the fact that there's, I guess, currently a national emergency based upon the governor there deciding to, looks like, use Virginia as a case study to see how it's received by the public on the removal of guns. So there's a lot of people upset right now, and we got a call, so I want to touch on this call. But then I'm curious to get your thoughts and see if you've been paying attention to it. So let's find out what's going on. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, my name's Matt. I'm calling from Chicago.
Matt from Chicago. How you doing? What's on your mind this afternoon?
Good. I just, we were talking about the election, what's going on politically. I think one of the important things. And I talked about this on Twitter about a month before it happened, and that is the centrist Democrats, the neoliberal elite, they're basically taking off the mask in terms of going after Bernie, going after the younger voters. I'm not going after them in terms of getting their allegiance, but going after them in terms of just outright hostility towards them. And that's... they're really creating a bad situation for themselves in that sense, where, if you watch Fox News, all the commercials are aimed at people over 70 or over 65. It's a very, Trump has a really good lock on the older demographic, but the younger demographic, the centrist Democrats and the Republicans are just completely losing the younger demographic, and that's why you look at Sanders, look at polls that came out yesterday in so many different states, where Sanders is actually beating Trump despite the Dow being at all-time highs and just absolutely parabolic, which under any other president, that wouldn't be happening. You couldn't have almost any other president in that position. But, Trump, if you look at his progression, I used to watch The Apprentice, The Celebrity Apprentice. He has changed, his tune and how he presents himself is getting more and more tuned to him watching Fox, and Fox is getting more and more tuned to the baby boomer demographic. But just like we saw in midterms, having a lock on the boomer demographic isn't enough in an election anymore, because the other demographics, everyone under 60, that's still growing, and we're not making more boomers every day.
Yeah.
And that's, I think the same way they lost midterms. I think Trump really could have won the midterms. The Republicans could have won the midterms, if not for the level of hubris and the level of just appealing to just that boomer demographic.
Yeah.
Which again, Trump, if you look at his career back to the beginning of The Apprentice, he wasn't like that. But by watching Fox, he's gotten more and more into that loop of laser focusing on the demographic, which I don't think he, if you look at how the stock market is right now, it's not just like stocks in 1929 and 2000 in terms of sentiment, in terms of how parabolic it is. It's also like Bitcoin at 20,000 and silver at 50. And we all know in all four cases of those four different bubbles, about a year later, they were 70% lower.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's lagging in polls now and barely, Bernie's ahead of him by 1 or 2 points, with the stock market parabolic, if the market's just down 20%, 30% by election day, he's in serious trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree. And so I appreciate you calling, my friend, and sharing those thoughts. We'll definitely chime on that on air. So thank you for calling in, my friend. Appreciate you.
No problem.
All right, be good. So yeah, so that's it's some interesting thoughts there. Who's his predominant? What's the predominant nature of his fan base, and the fact that I in regards to the 20% correction in the markets between now and then, if it does happen, it puts him in big trouble, no doubt. And so one of the problems I have is the fact that every so often or every day, President Trump is commenting on how strong of an economy we're having. And so by him continuing to play on that, if there is some type of slight correction, in the Dow, that's going to really hinder his ability to continue to keep this narrative of an expansion going, because he's talking about how strong the economy is, how he's running on a Dow narrative now. I mean, man, we got a long way before the presidential process really is underway, and a lot of things can happen between now and then. So, he needs to be careful with that.
Yeah, and for example, in the example that I'm giving out this morning, when we started the call, I can't remember where I was going to go with that about healthcare. Oh, because, he said he was going to be bringing up all the healthcare stuff this year. We haven't really heard anything talking about healthcare. I mean, maybe he has, but it hasn't been front and center predominant, as a big, huge issue. At least I haven't been noticing it. I've been noticing like the military and beefing up the military and tax cuts and supporting the economy. I've been noticing those as the big issues, and the trade war. I haven't been noticing healthcare as the big issue. And possibly because of these things, right? Because, if I can see these numbers, everybody else can, so they could easily call him out on it.
Yeah.
A couple of points I wanted to talk about in relation to the call that we just had, and I appreciate that. See, that's the kind of good stuff here, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, I would take a more sinister view of it and say that people aren't elected, they're selected. But that said, two things that this makes me think of and why there's such appeal for Bernie. My daughter's in high school, right? And the school, that's government, right? That's a government institution, right? So they're going to, they know who butters their bread, right? The schools promote, obedience and submission to the government. That's point number one. And point number two is whenever she asks about the election, because they're talking about in school, it's always only about the Democrats. Only. It's like always only about the Democrats. Which Democrat won the debate? Which Democrat is more powerful with this over that one? Which Democrat is blah, blah, blah. And it's like, my goodness, all they talk about is the Democrats, and just like that, government is the answer to everything pretty much.
Yeah, that's just the narrative. And so especially in the African-American community, this past couple years, this past decade, for the most part, has been very divisive in families where, just off the sole color of the prior president's skin, it was a tidal wave of people saying, my president. They took ownership and saying, my president, like never before, apart from I heard about like JFK and other more popular presidents was labeled as my president. People took ownership in the president. And I'm thinking man, my whole point of view from that time frame was be careful, just don't go upon him because he's the same skin tone as you. What does he stand on? And so when I noticed that he pretty much stood for everything that was popular and appeasing to the masses, to where I'm like, hold on a second, he's not much different than anybody else. And then I realized the trend and what I thought and believed that the narrative was supposed to go: have an African American in, have a female in, and have someone of a different gender and all that stuff like that. So I thought that would have been a trend until Trump popped up on the scene and seemed to have disrupted that, or they changed the narrative as to what they wanted to go. And so we'll find out when we look back in time. But
yes, good points. And I write about it all the time. I say that half the country got sold down the river under Obama, and the other half of the country is getting sold down the river under Trump, right? That's just my personal opinion, right?
Yeah.
People are like, because that's the other thing, right? I mean, because what we were talking about with Apple earlier, I mean, just the hate mail comes in. I was having a hard week this week, but, you know, I dislike all politicians equally, right? There's something inherently wrong with somebody who wants to tell somebody else what to do, right? That's like a sociopathic issue there.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want those people in power for long. You know, it should be like a raffle, and it's like, oh crap, I got to be the president for 4 years. You know, that's how politics should be, right?
Yeah. What bothers me the most out of politics these days are the lobbyists and the special interest groups. Just the fact you have people who are set aside and they're able to go to events and they're able to fund things and give donations and all in their own interest. That lets me know that there's a sway of votes that can easily be had by just offering the most money. So how can you actually get somebody to stand up and stand for something of meaning when they're being pulled, pushed, and tugged with all these promises of what they can do for them once they're out of office? And if you support this cause, we'll fund your account, we'll fund your campaign. So right then and there, there's a compromise. You have to be willing to say, okay, I'll say yes to this because they're giving me $1 million. And they're going to put me on the board when I leave office. So why would you not if you're looking out for your own best interest? So, yeah, that's why I personally don't have much confidence. And it bothers me that people get irate when they take ownership in a certain president as if that person really knows your name or even cares about you because you're one of 300 million that they're responsible for making decisions on behalf of. And they do it in the best interest of themselves or their parties or their special interests first, and the public last, in my opinion. So, yeah, I just wonder why people get mad when we talk about share our opinions because, once again, we're going to find out what they're all about after the fact. And to this day, there hasn't been many presidents that have put us in a better position than they've came in office with because the debt goes up still. So, once again, what exactly are you doing other than keeping this thing going the same way it's been going prior to you coming into office? So.
Yep.
Great points.
Great points. Can you keep going for a couple more topics here, Mike?
Yeah, let's go. Let's hit another one. We can hit another one.
I got 3 more topics. I don't know.
Let's go. We can see how far we can go. As long as people are tuned in and watching us, we good.
One of them is just, real quick, but we've been talking about this a lot this week, and I just wanted to bring this up to talk about it one more time this week because this is real. This is the real deal, right? So this is robots take over Domino's new supply chain center. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this topic, but here's just a couple points I want to make up. Yesterday, when I was talking to David Morgan, he's talking about robotics are taking over mining. You know, it's like, so you're not even going to have miners down in the mines anymore. It's all going to be robotics down there too. And this is already happening. And he also made up a very interesting point about this too, right? Think about a miner in the United States. They make good money. A miner in the United States, has good benefits, right? Think about a miner in Latin America or think about a miner in China. That's a whole different ballgame right there. So they're moving to robotics. It's real. It's being implemented right now. And a lot of miners, unfortunately, are going to be out of work because of this and have to find new work. So that's point number 1. And then just point number 2. So, we were talking about Walmart also this week specifically. And then this with the Domino's. This is going to be an automated center to process the pizza dough for 300 regional stores. And you can see this actually working, right? I mean, it's science. You drop in 50 pounds of, bleached, enriched flour. You drop in 2 cups of yeast, you drop in this, and then all of a sudden the robots whip up the pizza dough, right? Yeah. So, any thoughts on that?
Once again, that's the trend, ongoing trend. It is the evolution of employment where we're shifting from actual physical labor, where people no longer will be required to give their time and skill and everything of that nature in certain jobs. And then they're going to be automated. Therefore, that's going to provide more people with a lot more time than they anticipate having. Therefore, what do you do at that time? So it's one of the things where, I'm not even going to really comment on it anymore because I spend too much time on the subject matter. But right now, between now and the time you get that pink slip, hopefully you're making preparations for life beyond your job. So I'll leave it at that.
Yes. And my overall point with that is, we've talked about it a lot this week. And the point is that it's coming very, very fast. In fact, it's not coming. It's being implemented. And it's being implemented at an accelerating rate.
reconnection. So okay, so we are live again. So all right, so let's keep going right from there. Once again, have a connection problem with a third-party software system. So anyway, we keep it going. So let's get ready. We'll use this next topic or two to get ready to dial back and go from there. So before we get disconnected again.
Okay. Did I send the last one to you?
You sent me the Bloomberg one, yes.
Okay. So, so this is also out just today, right? I mean, we talk about stuff that's fresh, Mike. We're talking about stuff in the here and in the now every single time we come on.
Yeah.
And this says the U.S. is to start issuing 20-year bonds to fund the rising deficit. So this is a brand new bond, right? Brand new bond, right? So, you got the T-bills, you got the long bond, which is the 30-year bond. You got the note, like the 10-year note. Now this is a 20-year bond. This is a brand new bond.
It beats 100 year.
That's coming. That's coming, Mike. So the 50-year and the 100-year is coming. So just the point here is that, nothing is getting for the better, right? That's the other thing, right? The size of government, like the number of government employees has been growing year over year, right? So government is in fact not getting smaller. It's getting bigger. The debt is not getting smaller. The debt is getting bigger. Now we got a whole brand new bond offering. Details will be forthcoming on February 5th. So
here's a question. At this current moment, to my knowledge, with the debt instruments they're already offering, not many nations are lining up to just go ahead and buy some things that you may not necessarily get paid back fully, or you're not going to get paid back in dollars that are of value, given the fact that not sure what the current interest rates are or yield on those bonds are, but they're better than the EU, of course. But once again, unless they fix the yield on those things moving forward to make it that much more promising, who's going to be in line to buy those things? So once again, the Federal Reserve might be directly purchasing them, going around the market, purchasing themselves, and funding Uncle Sam directly until they can't do it anymore. So that's kind of what I'm anticipating happening.
Yep. Sounds good. Well, good way to put it. As far as just final comments here, like for me, just the last thing, we don't even really need to get into this too much, but these are just what I would say as the final comments. Iran hasn't completely died down yet. Reports are coming out as far as like the deep state and the globalists and the military industrial complex, they're still pushing it, right? So just coming out today also is that U.S. troops were actually injured in those missile strikes, right? So they're not letting it just fade away like that, right? And then there's also things about the Ayatollah is really mad and he's saying we've really only just begun. And so this is back in the news again. They're still pushing this again. So we are not out of the clear on Iran like people think that we are.
So here's a question. If there were 11 people injured or whatever the number might have been, President Trump came on national television the next day and said that there was no injuries or there was nothing significant. So what happened? Like why? So who's not telling the entire truth is the question. Was it the president the next day, or is the Pentagon who gave his numbers or whoever verified these numbers not? What happened? What happened? Like where's the disconnect is where I will be concerned. So this is just more of an idea as to why you should always question what's being told to you up front. Use that information along with what your prior knowledge would lead you to have believed to put together your own thoughts, and don't be gun-ho saying that, my president, this and that, he's telling it. No, be leery because everyone has an agenda at this current moment. Every single person has an agenda when it comes to giving you a story because it's about keeping this thing going and keeping the public dumbed down.
Yes. Excellent points. I personally think, in my own opinion, that what happened was President Trump was trying to appeal to the warmongers, the ones that are like, yeah, we got to go to war with Iran. We got to strike Iran and kill these dang terrorists. He was trying to appeal to them, but I think that he also saw that there would probably actually be true organic protests in the street if we got into another war in the Middle East. And I think that he miscalculated the popular support for a new war in the Middle East. I don't think the popular support for a new war in the Middle East is there. I think that's why he had to de-escalate that because he would lose. Because when I got into it with Dave Cullum the other day in our interview, he's talking about, well, tell me a demographic that is going to vote against him. But my point was, it's not a demographic. It's a single issue voter. So the ones that voted for him specifically because he was going to end the wars and bring the wars home, they would have been out in the streets, right? Other single issue voters that might vote against him again in the 2020 election would be, those who wanted him to lock her up and drain the swamp, right? And just single issue, right? That's what I'm looking at. So there would have been a huge single issue voter, and they would have been out in the streets openly protesting this war. That would not have been good PR.
Yeah, very true, very true. So, all right, people, with that being the case, we got to get ready to dial back this afternoon. It's been great hanging out. Low blood pressure says, Paul, that drone pilot will receive a Purple Heart. I'm assuming what
I don't know. They were treated for concussions, and it's a nice.
And so it looks like Grinch got some stuff there. Iran, I'm not even going to begin trying to pronounce that stuff there. So as always, everybody, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us this afternoon. Sorry about the technical difficulties, as well as some people said with the caller, they couldn't hear him, but it's one of the things where I'm playing his voice right into my mic. So it should have been good, but if it wasn't, I apologize. Got to iron out more kinks. And so, we got a 2-man show with a couple light men holding the camera, holding the lights. Other than that, we're a work in progress as well. So we're looking to get better in 2020. So appreciate the feedback. And other than that, enjoy your weekend. We'll be back Monday. More news. There's going to be more things happening this weekend where we'll have more to talk about on Monday. So as always, if you guys enjoyed the back and forth, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up and share this information. Bring more people into the fold so they can wake up to the real truth of what's going on. So that being the case, be blessed, be safe. Have a great weekend. See you guys next week.